All right, here we are. Welcome, my name is Thomas. Thanks for the intro. I work at Stellate, also thanks for the intro. And I was holding this talk together with Ricky, who sadly isn't feeling well today. So I'll have to excuse her and do the talk on my own. Bear with me, I only rehearsed my parts of the talk, so this is half improvised. So excuse me if I get a little stuck. All right. So I want to open with a question, actually. And the question is, why do you think GraphQL is so successful?
Because front-end developers finally have the power to get the data that they want.
Yes, one reason. And I think another big reason of why GraphQL is so successful is actually the tooling. And like probably the most prominent tooling that comes to mind is actually GraphQL. Or you could say in general, GraphQL IDEs. And so I'm here to talk to you today about the future of GraphQL IDEs. But before talking about the future, I want to also go a bit in the past and share you the history of GraphQL IDEs. And Nicholas has already mentioned some of it, so we can do a slide shortcut. It actually all started when GraphQL itself was open sourced by Facebook back in 2015. Right at this point, it already came with the first version of GraphiQL, which was also built at Facebook at the time. Then, as Nicholas already said, some company called GraphQL started going into the GraphQL space and actually created their own IDE, which they called the GraphQL Playground. And this IDE brought a lot more to the table that GraphQL didn't have back in the day, like multiple tabs so that you can write multiple queries at the same time, or I don't know, more customization, automated schema reloading. So a decent design. Spoiler for later. Yeah. Also, 2018 saw the release of the VS Code extension for GraphQL, which allowed you to really have a more tight integration with GraphQL while editing your files in your favorite code editor. Then at 2020, this GraphQL company has rebranded to Prisma since and decided to go more into databases. So the playground was handed over to the GraphQL Foundation. And so now we have the two most popular IDEs, GraphQL and the Playground, both owned by the foundation. So they started making plans, okay, how can we move this forward? What's the next version of GraphQL? How will it evolve? And yeah, that's what I want to talk to you about today, a bit more in depth. But maybe why? Why do we need a new GraphQL? Why aren't we satisfied with what we have? Why do we need to do something different, something new? We thought a lot about this, and it comes down to the question, what do GraphQL users actually need? And it's not as simple as that. It's also, what do they need, let's say, on day one? On day one, I'm just starting to learn GraphQL. I have no idea about it. I want to try it out. I want to get into it, understand it, learn it, maybe try to run some queries. So I need a really simple way to get started. Also, this should be accessible for everyone, so not just for people who can use mouse and keyboard and have perfect eyesight, but for everybody. On day 10, I'm a step further. On day 10, I probably have understood how GraphQL works, and I'm actually starting now to get into maybe developing on my first GraphQL server. So I need a tool that helps me writing my schema, writing queries, testing my schema. So it's a lot about having efficient workflows, being able to iterate quickly. Then again, on day 100, hopefully I have shipped my first GraphQL server, and I'm building a product, and it's super successful in the best case. So I again have different needs. and suddenly I need an IDE that needs to support my ever-growing schema, because the bigger my product gets, the more stuff I need in my schema. So thinking about Meta, for example, Meta has thousands of types in their schema. So I need an IDE that can handle like 1,000 types in a schema. I also, like, the more I get into building my product, I need more ways to, or I want to have more ways of customizing the looks and feels of GraphQL. I want to be able to embed it to maybe in my docs or in my blog posts. And an IDE can also be a tool for collaboration. So if I have a broken query that I want to debug with my coworker, I should just be able to like share this and send this over and start hacking on it. So a lot of user needs that we thought through, and what we came out of this is we need a GraphQL that has a structure and also a design that makes this possible for users. So what did we come up with? Without further ado, I want to present you the next design for the next major version of GraphQL. And it looks about like this. Thank you. I didn't come up with it, but thank you. So a lot of similarities, I guess. It's still a very lean design, very much intentional, kept simple, but a bit more modern, doesn't feel like 2010. And a lot of similar elements, like you have the query editor here in the center. To the right, you have the response editor, and the variables and headers editors in the screenshot, they are hidden, but they pop in from the bottom. So still quite familiar to what you maybe know. But there are differences, and the most striking probably is the docs here. First of all, the design and structure of the docs. I'll come back to that later in a bit. But also the placement. We moved that from the right side to the left side. And speaking about structure, this was like a big topic in how we iterated over this design and how we came up with it. We wanted to create a design that is customizable and extensible, and structure plays a big role in that for us. So I want to highlight the structure a bit. This is more a schematic view of how the structure of GraphQL looks like. And there are certain elements I want to highlight. On the left side, you see there's a sidebar from which you can open what we'll call plugins. And plugins are basically kind of extensions or additions that enhance the experience of using GraphQL. You can think of the docs as like the built-in plugin for GraphQL. But we imagine that in the future, users will be able to write their own plugins. And it's not just on the left side here. We also reserved some extra spaces beneath the main query editor for what we call editor tools. This could be something like the variable editor that you probably know, but it could be something more custom, like showing the parse document of the query that you write above. And similarly, on the right side beneath the result, there are result tools, or there's space for result tools. Could be something like showing the response headers in addition to the payload. And like these are just examples. You could, or everybody who wants to use an IDE like GraphQL can come up with their own needs, and hopefully we'll be able to use these spaces that we created in the structure to make GraphQL fit their needs. So when we looked at this, the structure that we imagine, it was very clear to us that what we needed to do is to take GraphQL as it is today and basically break it up into smaller individual building blocks that you can reuse to like put together this more kind of flexible and customizable UI. And not just like this structure in particular, but this will also enable us to service different use cases, like apart from the main one, which is like showing GraphQL on your whole screen, but maybe something like just taking a subset of these building blocks, throwing away stuff that you maybe don't need, and creating a small and lean version that I can embed in my blog posts and where I can run queries directly from my blog post. And actually, I have prepared a demo of how you will be able to use these building blocks, which I will show you in a bit. But I want to quickly also finish out the design which I'm talking about, because there is one more thing about the design that I also want to mention. Can you guess? Finally, it's probably like the most requested feature, I guess, in GraphiQL. The next major version will finally also ship with probably one of the USPs of the Playground, a dark mode, which we also made sure that it really looks good, feels good, and is accessible in terms of color contrast. So hopefully that raises the excitement bar maybe even a little bit more. OK, but enough talking about design now. I mentioned a demo, and I prepared a demo where, and what I want to do is, oh, this is getting really small, but we'll manage. What I prepared is a simple empty React app. And what I want to do is now build a GraphQL IDE from scratch with you. Like not totally from scratch, but almost, using the building blocks that I spoke about earlier. So let's open this up in this localhost. What is the new V port? 55173. Sorry. OK, here we go. Oh my god. I wasn't prepared for this. So, OK, empty React app. And the only thing that I added here basically are dependencies. And you see this package called GraphQL React. This is the one that contains all these building blocks. There's a next year. This is not like fully released yet, so don't get too excited, but it will be soon. There's also this toolkit package and GraphQL package, which is more supporting or peer dependencies in this case. But anyway, let's get started building our GraphQL IDE, shall we? And maybe let's start with the heart, the query editor. And I'll just import this here from GraphQL React and render this. And I get an error, which is expected, because I also need some state. And the state is abstracted in context providers. And for example, to use this query editor, I need a schema context provider. So let's also import this from GraphQL React and wrap this. By the way, is this big enough? Can you see this one? Can make it like that. And this needs a so-called fetcher. And a fetcher is basically a function that performs a GraphQL request. And can also handle stuff like subscriptions and multi-part responses. And we can easily create this with a function from the toolkit package that I mentioned earlier. And we can just pass this a URL. And I already have prepared the demo Star Wars API here to insert. Let's see. I still get an error, because I also need the editor context provider. So let's add that. And I need to import it. And here we go. No more errors, but nothing yet to see, because I need to do some styling. Sorry for doing ugly inline styles here, but for the sake of simplicity, I think that'll do. Make this full height. And what I also need are some styles, which come with GraphQL React. So let's make sure to import those. Autocomplete is leaving me alone here. And here we go, a query editor. And not just that, but if I start typing here, I already get like my type ahead, because like the schema context provider and the fetcher already took care of fetching and introspecting the schema and passing it down for the query editor to consume, which is quite handy. So I guess we also need some place to show the response, right? Let's just wrap this in another div and make this display flex. Let's also make this a display flex. Typing as fast as I can and as correct as I can. This is a direction column, and we'll make this flex 1 so that it takes up heights. Let's do a section here because we want both halves to be same width. Flex 1 here. Save this. And now another section next to it. And here I'll place my response editor, which also comes from Graphical React. And if all goes well, it does, I now have an empty response editor because I didn't run a query yet. So I want to run a query. And for that, let's add the execute button, also from Graphical React. And I get an error again because I'm missing the execution context provider for executing stuff. And let's adding this. Let's add this and import it. And this also needs the same fetcher. By the way, we'll make this provider stuff easier by also having a single provider component that will allow you to just render all of them if you don't care about adding each individually. And here we go, having a beautiful pink execute button. And now it's the moment of truth. If I did really everything correct, let's jot down a simple query here, run it, and here we go. We get a response. And with that, with 46 lines of code, I was able to build my own GraphQL IDE. It looks like shit, but that is beyond the scope of this demo. Sorry for the language. One last thing I want to highlight while we're talking about styling. All the styles that come with Graphical React are based on CSS variables. So if you're not happy with this shiny, bright pink color, you can also switch that out super easily. Let's container. Let's do this really quick. I think it's color pink. And let's just make this blue now. And I have a blue button. And this works for colors, for spacings, for sizing, like everything that you might need to customize Graphical and make it blend in with your product. All right. So much for the demo. Back to my slides. And fun thing is, this demo was actually heavily inspired by what we did just last week at Stellate. Because what we are currently doing is building the next generation of our dashboard. And we always had like an IDE built into our dashboard, which you could use to like execute requests. In the first version of the dashboard, we used the Playground. But for the new dashboard, we basically did just what I demoed. Maybe a bit more complete. But with 100 lines of markup and 150 to 200 lines of CSS for layout and stuff, we were able to create this. A fully integrated, embedded GraphQL IDE that blends in with our design and, yeah, just works and looks awesome. And we hope that, or I hope that this can be an example and will get you excited for you all and everybody listening to take this toolkit, this Graphical React package that we created and these building blocks and create your own IDEs and build them right into your product and having a first-class like developer or user experience for your product. So, where are we in this journey of getting to Graphical version 2, like the next major version? I also want to talk about this quickly. The first step that we did was basically modernizing the code, breaking up the existing, especially the state management into smaller chunks, placing this into these providers, some of which you have seen in my demo. And basically, we started bootstrapping Graphical React with these context providers. This is done. We're finished with that. That is actually also already, if you install the latest Graphical version today, this is already basically included. Where we are still working on is getting the UI refresh ready. So basically the design that I showed you earlier. And this will be the next major version that we'll push out, hopefully within a couple of weeks, I'd say. And this will also include all these building blocks in the graphical React package, which you are free to consume. Maybe let's go even beyond that. And like, what comes after it? What are the plans that we have more long-term for GraphiQL? One thing which I already talked about basically are plugins. So we want to make it even easier and really create this kind of plugin API where you can add and write your own plugins and customize the experience of GraphiQL if you maybe don't want to like create your own thing from scratch. We already have like lots of proposals for possible plugins, so we are hoping that we can solve a lot of existing feature requests with that. The next big thing and the next major version after version 2 will probably then be replacing the code editor, which is CodeMirror currently, with Monaco. This is the code editor that is used for VS Code, which will basically give you a familiar VS Code-like experience when using GraphiQL. Like, you get all the common shortkeys, and most importantly, it's also a major improvement around accessibility, because VS Code has already a lot of accessibilities built in, and we want to also get this into GraphiQL. And coming back to the design I showed you previously, I should have included a slide again maybe. We are working on a new doc explorer, which is basically a marriage between the traditional docs and the Explorer from OneGraph that is quite popular and that a lot of people already today integrate together with GraphiQL. We're currently building a prototype around that and trying to test and validate if this concept really makes sense. And this is eventually something that we'll also want to bring to GraphiQL built in. And yeah, I guess that's content-wise most of the things that I have for you today. I want to leave you with, if I got you excited, if I got you interested, if you want to take action or maybe just follow along, what can you do? You can join our Discord server. This is the official GraphQL Discord server, where we have actually 2 channels about GraphiQL. One is just called GraphiQL, and it's more in general chatting about GraphiQL. If you have any questions around it or need support, then that's the channel for you. And the GraphiQL development channel is specifically for getting to this next major version and this design and the prototype in the future beyond that, what I talked about. And we also, if you are really excited, want to go home and try it out for yourself, or like put out your laptop and like do it right here, we published the version that I used under the next tag. So you can run npm install at GraphiQL React Next, or also GraphiQL Next, and try it out for yourself. Be aware, we don't have really docs or anything yet, so it's we'll need to make that happen also, so you're kind of on your own when trying it out. But if you're up for it, we're happy, and we're even happier if you want to give us feedback. I guess that's all that I have for you. Thank you very much.
Do we have questions?
Do you guys have, are you thinking about like language support? Like, want to change it, like some of the labels into like a different language?
It's a funny question. There has been also like proposals for internationalization for GraphiQL in the past, and there was already like a push for a next major version, which happened about 2 to 3 years ago, which tried to include a lot of things, like also already thinking about Monaco, and this already included internationalization. It included so much stuff, in fact, that it never got released because it never got finished. So internationalization is something that I guess where we have issues, where we see some need, but which we don't have for the in our immediate roadmap at the moment. But definitely something to come back to once we like get this focus topic, which is the redesign out. great question.
One more question.
Yeah, so it is regarding the future plan. The components which we see you use while building the editor.
Yeah.
So any plan to make it as a web component so anyone could use it could be a technology agnostic or the framework agnostic.
Also a great question. GraphiQL has, I guess, always been very React focused. So the initial version was written in React. We now have this GraphiQL React package. So that's still the primary like focus, I think, for the next for the midterm. I guess long term it would be nice to also bring this to different frameworks or like libraries. We kind of like this a bit of it. We had this toolkit package, so a bit of like the logic parts. We already tried to extract this, like creating this fetcher. This was initially also part of the main GraphiQL package. So we tried to also extract these kind of logic things to be a bit more standalone and reusable, also if you don't use React. And we'll have to see how that can work out in terms of UI components. We don't have like really plans for it, but yeah, let's see, I guess.
Yeah, who knows? I mean, what would be the next major famous framework in the JavaScript?
We'll see.
Yeah, thank you.
Nice.
Thank you.